But now we're getting into the more serious segment of the show, the part that deals with the conspiracy. Every Wednesday, we call it Conspiracy Wednesday. And it's part of our ongoing segment, ladies and gentlemen, the segment called The Good News, The Bad News, and the Other Shit. That's right. Yeah, I don't believe you heard me. It's the good news, the bad news, and the other shit. But then it boom, boom.
What's all the extra sound effects for?
I'm a praying in the knee.
You know what? We can do a duet. Get you in the studio, Mario.
I know when to shut up, see. When you hear those songbirds. Well, everybody, today is Conspiracy Wednesday, and like every Wednesday, we hit the conspiracy topics. We still wanted to get that piece with PMC, but we're having some trouble with it technically, but we're still going to work that out.
Yes, we are.
PMC, because we love the whole idea. He's working on the video. There's some issues with that, but we're going to get PMC because he's such a wonderful component of our chat room, and that's why he's our featured member of the chat room.
Yes, he is.
But today we're going to be talking about the 700, well, it's over now, I think it's over 800 Wall Street protesters that have been arrested, and no one is talking about it. That's right. No one is talking about it. And we're wondering why, because this is something that's been going on for over 2 weeks. And people say almost nothing on the mainstream media.
Right.
When they do show it, they seem to be mocking them, saying it is a rebellion without a cause. They don't have a list of demands. Well, that tells you something, you guys. I thought that was the big thing. When you have 700 people get arrested because of people getting together, out there on Wall Street, and they don't have a set of demands. They're just pissed off. You should be more worried.
I have something to say. I believe that it violates the First Amendment, which is the freedom of speech. And so if you're arrested because you disagree with the current, regime, and you decide that you want to make a civil protest, that's supposed to be within the Constitution.
Well,
so I don't understand why... okay, it's permissible, but you choose not to give media coverage.
Well, that's where you might have to write to the president or to the administration, because that's the kind of things that people are saying. 800 arrests, and as it turns out, this was one of those populist movements where people on the internet agreed to show up and take over Wall Street. They wanted to just show up. They weren't sure. And what's so interesting about it?
We're going to do a takeover.
Yeah, people are doing it for different reasons. That's right.
Like in the Bible.
That's right. And that's what makes it so incredible. They didn't have a set agenda. They didn't have one. They were going to do.
That's a great attempt, but you know what? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Well, hey.
If you're going to play the game, then you have to know the rules and play according to the rules. Now, they should have started some petitions or started contacting their local senators and things of that nature. And maybe let them be aware that we are planning to protest and that we would like to sit down and have a council meeting. And maybe then it probably would have been accepted. But they didn't follow the proper channels. No, and I think the part that people have to recognize is that this is a movement with no leadership. As you witnessed that happened in, and as we saw in Egypt and other places, okay, as we saw recently in Libya, you have popular movements of people who just have had enough, who start to amass in the streets to express themselves. So what's interesting with this movement is that there is no leadership. It's a loose organization of 10, 20, maybe 100 different factions or people, all of whom gathered. Let's take a look. Let's take a listen. We had to go to the foreign press, as we so often do, because the American press so often fights us. They won't let us, even though we have the legal fair use right to show these clips, because we are reporting news. They do everything they can to shut us down. That's why one of our YouTube accounts, previously with 1.9 million views, shut down because of these kinds of things. But we want you to take a look, because we went to Russia television, and let's find out about the people occupying Wall Street. Wow.
Here we go, everybody.
Wow.
They have been accused of not having a unified message.
They seem the message is muddled.
Maybe because they're drawn from all walks of life, brought together by anger and frustration at the direction of their country.
I'm sad because of all the misery that's been created from a policy that I've been trying to change for 40 years. It's just ridiculous how They destroy the lower caste people. And this is necessary.
Day or night, rain or shine, it's the personal stories of these protesters that have kept them out on the streets 3 weeks into the demonstrations. And the deeper into the occupation, the deeper the wounds. 67-year-old Leonard Teacott came all the way from California, leaving behind a 97-year-old mother. The retired home financing specialist worries about the future generation.
I have enough money to survive my lifetime, so I don't have any problem. But it's my great-grandkids. My grandkids, they can't make it. It's just too hard for them to make it.
These protesters have largely been presented by the media as hippie anarchist teens. This marching 89-year-old retired teacher would beg to differ.
Wallstreet? Oh, my God. What they do to the American people, to our system, completely corrupt, completely responsible for the mess, the recession that we have.
Video art student Leah is here with her 3-year-old daughter, Uma.
I want to bring my daughter because I would like for her to get an idea of what it is to be politically active.
She says protesters' issues with the system may differ, but if you're fed up, this is where you need to be.
Their issues all come down to one thing in the end, and that, you know, when the wealth is concentrated into the hands of the few, it's very difficult to get any new laws passed for any kind of issue that is in the interest of the 99%, as people have been going around saying. That, you know, I mean, that's the economic reality.
Pennsylvania couple Dawn and Matthias add some rose petals to their outdoor beds to stay cozy, topped off by an American flag.
I left my job, I left my home.
I left my family, I left my job, because I think that this is a very, very important cause. This is a true revolution that's going on, and I need to be a part of it. I have a lot to offer.
It's not just passion, but knowledge that's led them to the protest. The couple's friend Anna spends her time researching the global and American financial system. She drove 20 hours to get to Wall Street from Iowa.
This is a bottomless hole, and that there's so much corruption there that, you know, as quoting...
Didn't know it was like this, did you?
We're mad as hell, we're not going to take it
I
anymore.
know. Me
Anna
neither.
found out about the protests a week into the action.
At that moment, it dawned on me that mass media is not covering it at all.
2 weeks later, the media has paid some attention, but as the demonstrators are presented as young slackers...
What's one thing that hippies like most? Drugs.
Yeah, you're laughing at us.
Real change.
They're laughing at you.
More diverse by the day. Anastasia Churkina, RT, New York.
That's my point. Take a look to see what's happening, and I want everybody to know. This is an example of a popular movement occurring in the United States. There are other protests that are springing up all over Chicago, even here in L.A. Didn't see the media's trying to ignore it, but you know what's fueling it? Internet. Citizen journalism. Citizen journalism. And I'm going to show you some examples, you guys, because I did go out and gather some other examples, Vic. And I'm going to show you also some videos that I posted on Facebook. But what do you guys think so far about this?
Oh, go ahead, Toffee. I'm going to let you in on this one.
Wow. I'm at a loss for words. I'm here in California, Los Angeles in particular. It's a struggle here watching, you know, the breakdown of the economy. You know, homelessness is just, it's not only affecting people in the sense that we know it's domestic, it's all over the U.S., but you're seeing people that you know that are homeless. You're seeing vacancies popping up, you know, 3 and 4 on one block. Redlining of occupations. There is definitely an agenda going on. It's not clear cut, but I mean, a person that was a drug addict could see it. It's not rocket science. The question that I think we all need to consider is, what are we going to do? Journalism is a start, you know, getting the word out. And I think, it takes you back to the point of Shays' Rebellion in the beginning when the United States was formed. And they, at that time, did not see any justice in, one, making the Constitution equal to all people, because it stated that blacks were 3/5 of a person. So when your Constitution that is supposed to be the document that holds the fabric of your country together, and all the people in this melting pot, and you feel that there are some things, because it doesn't apply to this day, it doesn't need to be there, or doesn't need to be addressed. That minor thing, the fact that you don't want to consider something like that that's in this document, that is, this is the representation of America, the Constitution, and you don't want to make sure that is not biased and that it does show equality as well as in its laws. That shows you that there is no concern. So I think being aware of exactly what we're bringing light, but we need to understand exactly what we're up against. It's a very serious issue.
Well, that's where people are talking about who to hold accountable and why. I'm going to show you again some pieces, and then we're going to talk about that. Here's a piece again: citizen journalism. Okay, this was shot by someone on their phone.
Officer, can I ask you for the reason that you're recording? And he's completely ignoring me. Completely.
This is shaky because you can see that people are posting.
Are they beating people? So we don't know who was injured.
No, you don't.
People could have been killed.
I'm going to show you some other examples because you're not seeing this on mainstream media. I need you to know that people are in Wall Street.
Oh my God.
They show you three brothers on Crenshaw.
You're dragging this guy.
This is Wall Street. Your Homeland Security got 50,000 in New York, 35,000 officers. This is how they're using your dollars.
What's his name? They are detaining several. I'm not sure how many.
This can't be good. If they're fighting this,
What's your name?
they don't want it to go mainstream. I mean, how can you think that this problem is going to get better?
Go to the internet, go to YouTube, Google, search Occupy Wall Street.
You assholes.
I'm a 55-year-old black man. I know what police can do. If you ain't never felt a nightstick, you ain't lived. I felt
Why
one.
are you dragging him
Or
across
two.
the street? Could you not get him on his feet, sir?
We have to start following the chain of command. We have to start.
Honey, can you give me your last name, please?
And then we have to
AHMADI and your first name?
That's what we have to do.
And your
we
first
have to
name?
get to our state officials
Jason?
and let them know. We have to start at the lower level. And we have to do it
Yeah,
by
you can totally see the
documentation.
discoloration in his
representation
hands.
is not
Is
going to
there
work. The pen
you're
and the pad is
actually
probably more
bleeding right
powerful
now?
than even a physical movement for them, because you see it has no power.
Yeah.
But if you make a copy of your documents and you get petitions and you present
Okay,
these
thank you. He's bleeding.
to
He's
your
bleeding
senators or to your state representatives, they have to
too tight.
consider it.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that I can say. We have to become more
Hang tight.
involved in politics and
We're gonna
and follow
call the lawyers
everything
for
by
you,
letter.
okay?
That's the only way I think anything can happen.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
Because obviously you see they're not going to allow this to get out to mainstream
You know what?
television.
Well, and I'm going to keep showing you. Go on, Vic.
Here's the part that I say, sometimes the emotion gets in the way. And the simple things can have a lot more weight and impact. When you look at the video, it starts at a certain point. Sometimes whoever's organizing this, it only takes somebody to say, look, let me shoot from the position that we're about to go in this direction. Follow me, have it progressive. So it doesn't start at a point of what they call this escalation. See, for me, I feel for them, but I also say, you know what, can't you kind of build a story? All of you guys are immobilizing this, but the best story starts from the camera shooting at the moment that there is a scuffle or something.
Well,
so it has an internal bias because I don't see it how it started.
Well,
yeah, I
here's
need
the thing.
something to make it sure that I have objectivity on it.
Well, here's the thing. I am going to show you some examples of broadcasts from previous, but with the citizens, it's pretty much as you think about it. These are not broadcasts even like ours. These are people who grab their phones and tap into immediately. So it's so different because they're not polished, they're not reporters, they're none of those things. In fact, one of the rare ones that I'm about to show you, actually, Vic, is someone who's somewhat organized. You see how rough.
Right.
This next piece I'm going to show you involves someone who's got a live stream account.
There we go.
The
That's
same
what
one
I'm
that
talking
we
about.
use.
Yes.
And they go live to it.
Yes.
But still, you got to see how rough,
Right.
how raw, this is.
That's what I like. Thank you.
Sorry, sir. Excuse me.
I can't breathe. He can't breathe. He can't breathe. Get off him. Get off him. He can't breathe. Look at this. What is this?
It's a kid.
Now, I'm going to take you back because, again, these are citizen journalism. That's why I'm going to skip around you guys. Because I'm just trying to set the tone because I'm going to get you to the other broadcast, okay? Okay, let's go to another because I'm going to get you to them, all right? I want to show you this one here. This is a view from the bridge, okay? Because this whole thing, they were moving around. They were going to certain parts. Take a look. Nothing you're seeing on CNN, Channel 4. This has been going on for weeks. And they're ignoring it because they're trying to trivialize the movement by ignoring it. Take a look. This is your America. We've got to make people accountable. That's why we're going to show it. Even if the internet is the only place you're going to see it, by God, we're going to do our part. Now, again, let's check. Now, once again, I'm going to jump around because I'm going to get into some other things. Now, there's another person who put up a piece of video that said that people were watching this go down, that just across from it were people on a bridge, here it is, that were watching everything go down while sipping champagne.
While sipping champagne.
Then I'm gonna take you back to another piece. But I want you to see raw footage from people who are just capturing it as it occurs. These are citizens. The 99%, that's what they're saying. They're not the 1% that's quadrupled their wealth during this time. These are not them. They haven't quadrupled their wealth. They're not buying up everything. Look at the folks drinking champagne. Look, waving. Yeah, waving at everybody. It's a joke. It's funny. You know, to quote Dante, the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who in a time of great moral crisis maintain their neutrality. Okay, the hottest places in hell are the people who stand on the sidelines and do nothing and say nothing and want nothing.
They need leadership. They need a voice. And you know, sometimes, like the part that you want, you need the narration, you need the story. You need to mobilize an effort where you have a singularity or a person who can speak well above all these people to kind of tell the story, or it gets lost and gets muffled. And I agree, I don't like what I'm seeing. But part of this is they say, slow down so you can speed up and then think carefully about what you're doing. Because if you don't frame the story in the beginning, you just shoot from that angle, and it can be very biased. Right. I'm still caught up in this part of saying...
The problem I tell everybody, especially the media too, I go like, they're asking for something that cannot occur. There is no leadership of this. So there's no one to go to and say, give us a soundbite.
Yeah.
These are people who are emerging in the street because they all care. So there's nobody to ask for an agenda. There's nobody to request an interview. There's no spokesperson
There's
for you to put on.
Right.
the
There's no,
6
no organization.
Because,
Yes.
That's
but
the
remember
problem.
now, this is what happened. This is what the populist movements have been. They weren't sponsored by an organization in Egypt.
But they
People
need,
just
but
got
Mario,
enough.
They need. I look at King and I go, once you get a person, and I look at what we went through as a struggle as black folks, and then you have a lot of what they call injustice, and there stands up an individual somewhere along the way. I'm not saying they have to do it, but it makes it easier to translate.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Sure, of course.
He also could become a martyr.
Sure, it would, and maybe
Yeah.
that would occur, but it's also a luxury of the time. In other words, in a time when the riots go on, it's hard to run out in the middle of the riot and say, "Hey, who's in charge here?"
Rodney King.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Mario, what about finding out what your listeners think? Getting opinions from them as far as what do they think?
Well, mostly people in the chat room are mostly shocked because a lot of people, remember, I recognize that a lot of you out there haven't seen this. That's my point. What a travesty. What a travesty of our media to think that something this important. Does everybody agree it's at least important enough to be on the 6 o'clock news? And how could you show nothing?
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely nothing. What a shame for you, Fox News and CNN. What a shame. But I want to show you this piece here that's going to tell you and answer a little bit more of your questions because people have compared this and they use the terms Arab Spring, which was the term that was used for the occurrence that occurred in the Middle East when people rose up on their own accord and began to challenge government. When people take to the streets and challenge their government, why does this occur? Who makes it occur? Let's take a look.
We're going to shut down Wall Street!
America's attempt to follow the example of the Arab Spring.
The banksters' fraud continues now with bonuses obscene. America, America.
There's a quote from
Wall Street
regarding Stokely Carmichael.
Social media had been abuzz
Gotta
with
use
this
that
planned occupation of Wall Street for months.
What do we want? Revolution! When do we want it? Now!
Up to 20,000 people were supposed to spill out onto the streets of the Big Apple's financial district. But not more than 1,000 of the most fed-up Americans showed up.
I've got my sleeping bag and my pad. I'm told not to bring a tent, so I left that at home.
Ben flew in from out of state to camp out here day and night. He has a simple message for the U.S. president.
He's just backed out of everything he promised in the campaign, so it's like he's asking to lose the next election.
Wall Street greed and corruption and the lack of accountability that followed brought these Americans to the brink.
This is just the beginning of occupying Wall Street. These crowds say they're going to be here until their demands are heard inside the offices of the Wall Street skyscrapers.
Over 46 million people are living in poverty in the U.S., with 14 million unemployed. Much of this triggered by the shameless gambling of Wall Street CEOs.
This very spot, Wall Street, is the site of a heinous crime. It has been perpetrated by Wall Street bankers who, instead of guarding people's money, speculated with reckless abandon and incompetence. And they clipped the wings of the American dream.
You get these corporations that are paying no tax. I pay more tax than GE and Exxon.
I spent a lot of years and a lot of money working very hard to get a degree. That degree is worthless now. And right now, ultimately, they are more powerful than any emperor has ever been. We are facing down an army of Caesars. And Caesar must fall.
Mayor Bloomberg has been warning New Yorkers that as youth unemployment skyrockets, riots could be around the corner. But these people blame him too.
Everyday people want to be involved in politics, and we deserve to be involved in politics. And I don't think you should have to be a billionaire like Michael Bloomberg to be involved in politics. Michael Bloomberg is a beautiful example of what's wrong with this country.
But for demonstrations like this one to become a real force and not just a fringe group, more Americans will need to join these crowds.
I expect the volume to get a little larger. You know, all movements start off small. So to answer your question,
Radio Raheem.
so few people, it's like, again, the information that gets out is controlled by the mainstream media, the corporate media.
So will the political and financial elite push Americans into launching their own Arab Spring, or will they take note before the crowds swell out of control?
Blood-sucking, warmongering bastards!
Wow.
Hey, everybody, you see what I'm talking about? You see what I'm talking about? Now, let me remind you. When 2 weeks ago, I was inspired, and do this yourself. Don't just believe me. Go to Google right now and Google military spending by U.S. Then Google military spending by country. And you're going to find out shockingly. This is why I know people don't like to indict the president. I know there are a bunch of the brothers out there. They say, Mario, he didn't start this. But let me tell you something. He damn sure is continuing it. Because in 2010, the U.S. spent $669 billion on defense. The nearest competitor was China at $114 billion. You can look it up right now. Google it right now. The U.S. outspent the rest of the world combined in military spending. So you wonder why you have no money for your health care? Because $669 billion in 1 year. That was just 2010. $669 billion, with the nearest country being China at $114 billion. That's how much we outspend. That's where your money goes. It's buying bombs. Okay? And I don't know. I know you guys say, well, the president ain't doing it. I know he signed the 2010 check. Okay? That's all I'm saying. So let's go. I'm going to show you this one more piece.
You said that's all I'm saying.
So one more piece, and this is to show you.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I am so disappointed. If somehow President Obama could see this video, I mean, I don't know how he could live with himself. I mean, he really has become blind. And and he just chose to become blind. I mean, I don't understand how any African American, first of all, with the history, okay, I understand he's mulatto, okay, but if you have African American blood and knowing what happened to our people, and you see what's happening just to your own people, and then if it passes over even onto other Americans, slavery was abolished, but whites were the ones that oppressed and enslaved blacks. But even now they're oppressing their own children. People of all races are suffering. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, how he has a white mother. I
hope we don't have to protest our first black president.
You know
but
what?
If things continue, I will be in the street because I'm not about that.
I don't care about what the color
exactly,
is.
My sister.
The color I want is consideration.
There you go. You hear that?
That's the color I want.
That's right.
I don't care if you are purple.
Correct.
You can be a Smurf, okay? If you are for equality of all people and fair market and, not preserving the elite, God, where are you? Okay, I want you to be my president. I will vote for you.
But do you think president, you think he wants people to see this?
Of course not. He doesn't. But, at this point, when you see that he's not considering what we need, who cares what he thinks?
Well, that's the question, you guys. And I'm not, a lot of people, Steve Harvey called Tavis Smiley and Cornel West Uncle Tom.
He needs to consider what's going on. I mean, the least that he can do, he goes out here and deals with all this war issues going overseas. At least Bush, and I'm not condoning anything about Bush, I'm just saying that make an attempt that makes it look like you're trying to consider people. Show up in a couple of states.
Exactly.
Try to show up in a couple of schools. Fake it until you can make it. Because right now, Obama, as far as I'm concerned, I don't even know if I can call him African American. I don't know what he is. He's for the elite. He's an elitist.
Well, let's face it.
And that's how I feel.
If he doesn't come out and say something, like I said,
he needs to say
those
something.
of you who are giving the president a pass, okay. Go on.
To say something.
Keep watching, but remember this is going on. It's getting near election time. Obviously, it's not on the media. Why? Obviously, the president is not talking about it. It's right there in Wall Street. See what's so amazing? They're not occupying Compton, okay? They are occupying Wall Street. That's a threat.
Right.
That's why they got 800 of them in jail. But when you can arrest 800 people for occupying Wall Street, they've been there for over 2 weeks, and you don't see nothing on the TV.
Right.
That's like when the military did studies that said that America doesn't like to see people coming home dead. And that as long as you didn't see it, you tended not to protest. So guess what happens? They don't allow you to film your loved ones' remains coming off the plane. You can't take a picture of them unloading your dead child from the plane. You can't even take a picture because they don't want anyone to see proof that people have actually died. This is the kind of stuff that goes on. And you know, the president sets the tone. The Justice Department damn near chooses. In the Justice Department, the people that are the higher ups, they actually, individual, almost managers of different, can choose what cases to go after. That's one of the issues of the Justice Department. Have you heard anything about this? No, but they sure will get you for, shipping bongs across state lines. Okay? They sure will get you for that. Let me just show you this one last piece here that talks about the movement that's growing and why it continues to swell.
We don't want that model. That's just creating more pain, more suffering, more corruption, and I think people are taking a stand.
More than 1,000 people in Los Angeles chose to stand in solidarity with the Occupy Wall Street movement at City Hall, the very visible center of government and power.
We are the 99.
Demonstrators worry that the 1% who control most of the nation's wealth have gained a stranglehold over the U.S. government.
Alexander Hamilton, referred to the people that he was so afraid of as the great beast, and the great beast has awakened.
People of all walks of life have turned out for this mass demonstration here in Los Angeles. Now, a lot of the protesters here say they've gotten their inspiration from the demonstrators in New York and in Athens, and others are inspired by the revolution of Egypt. Now, there's still much debate about whether this is part of a revolutionary movement here in America, but one thing that people can agree on is that some drastic changes need to be made as to how this country runs.
From the East Coast to the West Coast, and a growing number of places in between, a collective anger is unifying people. In the Windy City, a group has been demonstrating outside the Federal Reserve Bank in Chicago for more than a week. In Boston, a tent city in the heart of the financial district, means occupiers can voice their
Look at that in Boston.
Greed 24/7.
This is our country.
Despite dozens of arrests, demonstrators intend to show that democracy does not end at the ballot box. Families have also been marching in Denver and San Francisco, demanding radical change. From Oahu to Olympia to Omaha to Orlando. According to the Occupy Together website, protests are being organized in more than 100 cities.
Points that people are standing behind are worth a revolution.
I believe their time is up. I think that the world is recognizing that doesn't work.
Despite mainstream media downplaying and even ridiculing the movement, supporters have faith the message will be understood.
You saw what happened in London, and they tried to make that out about a bunch of people that were just, bad apples. That's humanity. Humanity's got an angst about them. Something is wrong.
Already bruised by soaring unemployment, poverty, and foreclosures, the middle class are now being told to tighten their belts, leading many Americans to finally find their voices.
The crowds will be getting bigger. It looks like it's spreading throughout the country. And, they had an Arab Spring, and, hopefully we have a U.S. autumn.
In Los Angeles, Ramon Galindo, RT.
All right, everybody. So that's been our focus for today. Occupy Together. Go take a look. Remember, I told you, do your own search. Don't just believe me. Search military spending by the U.S. This is what we admit to. And, in certain parts of our intelligence community have classified budgets. So I guess, is that an addition to the $669 billion? Is they call it classified budgets in addition to that? Or are they part of the $669 billion? I just don't know.
I'll say this. All these people that's doing all this complaining, when it was 5.6 and the people who felt like them were sitting up saying, I'm struggling too, well, they didn't really care at the time because that 5.6 was acceptable. When it got to 8 point and 9 point, then all of a sudden now, listen to us, now we're suffering. I said, but what's the difference between a 5.6 unemployment rate and an 8.9? Acceptable multiple collateral damage.
Exactly.
So my point is you need to come out when it's not just comfortable to sit in your chair when you all of a sudden getting affected. Now all of a sudden now you coming out, I'm going, oh, excuse me, where's the percentage of difference when now you include me?
Affected black folks.
Right, but no offense, but I mean, it's just so funny now. I mean, even the underlying racism that still exists, for African and I've been here in America my entire life. Haven't been out of the country, and I just feel the air of racism still. Although people follow proper conduct, some people don't even know what contributions African Americans gave to the U.S. Do you know that the Civil War wouldn't have been won without us? There's so much that this country was built on that African Americans contributed, and now that the biasness and racism that we have endured for our entire existence here in the United States, we still don't even have the option of going back to our country. We've had to be woven into this fabric and make a home here, and now others are being affected. And like you said, they're concerned now. Well, just imagine how we feel. We've been dealing with this our entire time here on the soil of the United States. So imagine, if you think we don't know, we know. And we know how to bite bullets, and we know how to bite the tongue, and roll with it, as people would say, just roll with the tide. The only thing I could say is, us mentioning the fact that they should have cared, that is a point. However, it's not going to make anything more effective. It does raise something they need to be concerned about, because if this does become a recovered situation and that happens again, they need to understand that the problem is humanity itself, okay, and the mind and the hearts of human beings. And if you have biasness in yourself for a race or for position or for whatever it is, being attractive, to not be concerned about other human beings is just, it's a crime. It's a spiritual crime. It's a humanitarian crime. It's a civil crime. It doesn't work. And so this is really helping us as human beings address where we are, who we are, and what we need to want. We need to address our wants and our needs, and really change the inner being of who we are. And as we start to do that, then maybe things can change. Because as long as there is the struggle between people believing they're better because of whatever purpose, whatever reason, race, money, power, there will never be a balance.
Well, that's the whole point, because one can never ignore the role of pacification. Remember, that $25 an hour assembly job was always a figment of your imagination, because it was only able to occur because of the oppressed workers overseas. Yep. Right. Keep that in mind. And remember pacification. When they pass a jobs bill, remember what they spent on defense. I told you, in 1 year, $669 billion. How much do they have to spend to pacify America? They give you crumbs from the table. They pass a jobs bill, and so they expect that people are going to go back. Well, maybe they do. If you all remember, the riots, the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles actually ended because they released the welfare checks early. And everybody lined up at the bank to get their check.
Wow.
So remember that. So the efforts that the government will use to pacify are there. And I'll quote Thomas Jefferson when I say, and this is from your Declaration of Independence, that mankind is more disposed to suffer while the evils are sufferable than to right these wrongs by abolishing a form of government to which they have become accustomed. In other words, you will take shit as long as you can take shit rather than make a change in those things you have become used to.
Yep.
All right.
And the deficit continues to grow at an all-time long high. It always grows. And it's really not about blacks. It's about the hierarchy of income. Just put the income ladder where it affects where you make more money and watch how it spurs and grows.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's right. And that's been Conspiracy Wednesday. The good news, the bad news, and the other shit. That's right. We intend to inform. We intend to inform. We will not shirk these responsibilities, baby. There's some things we mess around with. This ain't one of them.